Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let me say from the outset that it is tragic that 45 years after independence, we are still talking about the right of all Zimbabweans to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. We are here because Zanu PF has, for the last 45 years since the country's independence, has denied the people of Zimbabwe a meaningful say in the governance of the country. And so the country has been stuck with this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical Zanu PF dictatorship that has destroyed the country's economy and has left the country in political paralysis, because the political system that Zanu PF has created has not allowed quality leaders to emerge from either the ruling party itself or the opposition. This is why we are in this mess. The economic situation in Zimbabwe is deteriorating. Just a few hours ago, we were discussing on this platform the economic situation that has seen many of the big retailers closing shop. We are back to the economic meltdown of the 2000 to 2008. And at the present moment, the pressure is increasing for meaningful change to end this despair and helplessness. And Zanu PF is stepping up the gears in a desperate effort to stay in power at all costs. We recently had one group of 4 veterans denouncing Emmerson Mnangagwa, calling him a monster, and that he should step down. Well, Emmerson has not been sitting down. He has mobilized his own war veterans, and they are coming back swearing their allegiance to his rule. Here is a video clip of one of the latest group of 4 veterans speaking on this issue. Sorry, we'll start it at the beginning.
By war veterans, his happened. We always wanted the war veterans to be able to find some funds available to be able to do the little projects which the family can survive on. And here today we have the president's advisor, Kumi Tumbarara, who a few days ago told me that our call has been heeded by the president that this fund be launched. Apparently, it had been launched in vain, and finally we corrected that, and we are here today to launch it for you. The War Veterans Fund has been launched. We are going to receive not very much money per individual, but little enough money to be able to come up with a project at home to make us survive. Meanwhile, the bigger thing is coming, because you are aware of the War Veterans League's initiative of creating a War Veterans Family Wealth Trust that we believe is going to solve finally and totally the war veterans' wars over their lives.
Well, I think it's worthwhile commenting on that point. So this group of war veterans are coming out in support of Mnangagwa because he has approved some funding for them to start projects at home that will make them survive. This is 45 years after independence. Many of the war veterans are living in abject poverty. And so do millions of other Zimbabweans. They are living in abject poverty. I've said it on this platform that Zimbabwe is a failed state. Millions of our people are living in abject poverty. And yet the country's got so much potential. So Mnangagwa is bribing a group of war veterans to support his call to stay in power until 2030. But this should not come as any surprise at all. Many people believe that Mnangagwa must have spent upwards of US $5 billion to win the 2023 elections. From buying all those boxes of chicken and chips to give to the poor who were passed from one rally to another, to buying motorcycles and cars for the chiefs and headmen. And as you start going up the ladder, the bribes started to increase. MPs got US 40,000 each. They were called housing loans. Deputy ministers got 230,000 US dollars. Ministers, $500,000 US dollars. Judges, just a few weeks before nomination day, judges got a cool 400,000 US dollars housing loan. We all know that that is just a way of calling it, to stop calling it a bribe. But everybody, all of those people who received those loans know they never asked for it, and they were not expected to repay it. And I can bet you none of them have repaid it. And so now, with the country in serious economic trouble, Mnangagwa is reaching out to some of the war veterans to bribe them. And as our friend here is confirming, he's very pleased with this generosity from the president. And now he's willing to do Mnangagwa's dirty bidding. Let's listen more to what he has got to say.
It will do the little that it was not there. So we thank the president so much, and we also want to assure the president that the War Veterans League is unlike any other. We will be with the people. The people of Zimbabwe, last year in Bulawayo at the conference, resolved that the president extends his period, his stays a little long until 2030.
Let's just comment on that. That is totally, utterly nonsensical. Zimbabwe had elections in 2023. And those elections were found to be flawed and illegal. SADC, the regional body, the AU, had their own election observers. And they came up with reports condemning those election processes as flawed. That was the time when one could say the people had the chance to speak. So if the elections were rigged, the process was flawed and illegal, then Mnangagwa does not have the democratic mandate of the people of Zimbabwe to rule the country. He goes on to hold his own part conference in Bulawayo, and then comes back to tell us that the people want him to stay. Which people are you talking about? Are the Zanu PF membership the only Zimbabweans out there? Because the ordinary Zimbabweans, you deny them the opportunity to speak by rigging the elections. This whole idea that somehow we have got to interpret whatever happened at the conference as the will of the people is nonsense and should be dismissed with the contempt it rightly deserves. We cannot have some of these war veterans keeping on pretending that they are special. They have got the right to decide who rules the country on everybody else's behalf. No, you don't have that right. After 45 years of rigged elections, and the country is in serious economic trouble and political paralysis, we should at least have the common sense to accept that the Zanu PF de facto one-party state has been a total failure. I would like to speak on this issue of the proposed amendment of the Constitution to allow Mnangagwa to stay beyond 2028. I believe that Mnangagwa is pushing this very hard for two reasons. There are others, but I'll just mention two. The number one reason is, of course, the Constitution of Zimbabwe says a president can serve a maximum of 2 terms. And already Mnangagwa is served, by the time come 2028, he will have served the maximum 2 terms, 2 5-year terms. So how can he get around that? Well, this proposal to postpone the 2028 elections will get around that, in the sense that he does not have, he can say his term is not extending, is not going over the 10 years maximum, because it just happens with the term of his last 5-year term has been extended by 2 terms. by 2 years. The second reason is, even if there was not this clause that says Mnangagwa cannot contest the elections beyond the 2-term maximum limit, Mnangagwa knows that he rigged the 2023 elections. And he knows that SADC, Selection Observer Mission, damning report was such that when SADC, the body, accepted that report, the rational thing that should have followed is for SADC to say, no, we don't recognize your legitimacy. This happened in 2008. It didn't happen this time because the opposition had participated in those flawed elections in their millions. Some people do not fail to understand that argument, but it is a true argument. It is a valid argument. Nelson Chamisa and company have been participating in these flawed elections since the GNU of 2008 to 2018, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, and knowing fully well that by participating, they were giving Zanu PF legitimacy. They knew that. And so SADC in this case said they had a good excuse. If Zimbabweans are participating in these flawed elections, knowing fully well that they're flawed, who are we to say we should make the process still illegitimate? And that has been the problem. We cannot deny that Nelson Chamisa and company knew exactly what they were doing here. Nelson Chamisa in 2023 assured his followers that he had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. Anyone at all who had been following the political processes in Zimbabwe would have told you that is a damn lie. Tim Pachedu, a group of young men who were looking at the voters' roll, had reported repeatedly that the Zimbabwe voters' roll was in shambles. So the question then is, what did Chamisa do to plug those vote-rigging loopholes that a shambolic voters' roll invariably presents? And the answer is absolutely nothing. So Chamisa and company were deliberately conning the people of Zimbabwe to participate in a flawed electoral process, knowing fully well that it was flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, you're giving Zanu PF legitimacy. And even after the election had gone through and SADC and the AU had come up with their damning reports, those winning candidates of Triple C disregarded the damning report and went on to accept to take up their gravy-train seats. And some of them even boasted that the seats they had won was because those areas were liberated zones. Liberated in what way? The voters' roll in Zimbabwe was in shambles in the rural areas as well as in the urban centers where the opposition won most of their seats. The reason why they participated is exactly what David Coulter is stating there in the statement, in the quotation I'm showing at the bottom of the screen. They knew Zanu PF to buy legitimacy had to allow a few opposition leaders to win seats and thus maintain this pretext that Zimbabwe is a healthy and functioning multi-party state. That is our problem here. The problem with this is that in the current political atmosphere, Mnangagwa has been able already to corrupt those few Triple C leaders who won the 2023 elections. And now they're backing his agenda to stay in power to 2030. The Zanu PF and Mnangagwa's apologists have made a mountain out of that. They are now claiming that it is the people. The election process in 2023, I repeat, was rigged. The Mnangagwa presidency and the regime itself is per se illegitimate. And now the same said regime wants to extend its mandate to stay in power under the pretext that it is listening to the voice of the people. Doesn't say when these people spoke, because they certainly didn't speak during the GNU, during the elections of 2023. You can't rig the elections and then claim that the people elected you. No, you can't do that. And here is Mnangagwa himself dismissing with contempt the concerns of SADC, insisting that the 2023 elections were free, fair, and credible.
Vana vakatuka Zanu PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidza nekuchikanganisa. Ukavona vachiti Zanu PF yakaipa farai. You are doing correct things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelections anafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
We can't keep on pretending that only Zanu PF and the war veterans know what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections and what is good for Zimbabwe. After 45 years of rigged elections, with the country in serious economic meltdown, we need to be honest with ourselves and admit that the Zanu PF de facto one-party state has failed. And those in the war veterans, they may be in the army, the police, the CIO, the prison services, and some of them may be retired, some of them are in politics, some of them are in business, etc., etc. They should not abuse their position and keep on this pretense that being a war veteran means they are special. We must embrace the values and principles of the liberation struggle. And the number one thing the liberation war was fought for was so that every Zimbabwean can enjoy freedom, human rights, and a life in dignity. I think this idea of continuously patronizing and lying and bullying the people, Povu, is totally unacceptable. Zanu PF, it has been Zanu PF policy to keep particularly the rural Povu poor and politically powerless. This is a reality that we must face and deal with. Here is Margaret Dongo, herself a Zanu PF former freedom fighter. And then she was in the party soon after independence, and she was even an MP. And then she left the party and became an independent MP, speaking on the issue of Zanu PF's policies towards Povu.
They have wrong priorities, especially the current government. How can you go and build an airport which services a few people, and the majority are the elite and the so-called investors? Look at the rural. I made you come to interview me because I wanted you to have the experience of the roads that we are using. If we go today to our hospital there, you feel pity with that's a hospital in a rural area. If we go to our clinic, you feel pity. We have no piped water here. Do you know the reason why the rural people vote for Zanu PF? One, they're intimidated. Two, the policy is that the rural people should remain poor and subservient to the government. They should remain poor, because if they remain poor, they continue singing the song for their master. This is why these people have been impoverished. It's for a reason. Because at the moment, if you economic empower these people, they'll go out of hand. Zanu PF will never have control over them.
It is true that Zanu PF has deliberately kept millions of our people poor for the sake of controlling them. This idea that the resolution, the Buluwayo Zanu PF resolution, that Mnangagwa should stay in power until 2030, is the wish of the people of Zimbabwe, is a lie and an insult to the people of Zimbabwe, since the regime rigged the 2023 elections and denied them a meaningful vote. We cannot keep on pretending that this Zanu PF dictatorship is working. It is not. And it is a pity that many of the war veterans who have played a key role in the imposition of Zanu PF de facto one-party state creating it and imposing it and retaining it over the last 45 years, should continue to do so now. Mnangagwa dangles a few US dollars and they're willing to do his dirty bidding again. The war was fought to liberate all Zimbabweans so that they can have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. And to keep denying them in the name of the people have spoken, when you know that the Zanu PF conference was a party affair, nothing to do with the people of Zimbabwe. The people of Zimbabwe were denied a meaningful say in the governance of the country in 2023 when Zanu PF blatantly rigged those elections. Both SADC and the AU have condemned those elections. So why do you keep on pretending that you don't know that? Just because Mnangagwa has bribed you? How tragic. I think people like Douglas Mahia are a disgrace to all those who sacrificed their very lives in the fight of Zimbabwe's independence. Many of them died or have since died. They'll be turning their graves to see how some people are keeping on trying to drag on, denying the people of Zimbabwe, lying to them, bullying them, denying them their fundamental right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country, under the pretext that a Zanu PF conference now speaks on behalf of the people of Zimbabwe. It is not. The people of Zimbabwe were denied a meaningful vote, and that is the truth. Thank you very much, those of you who were able to join, and have a good evening.